Hey everyone, it's John with the Caricature Entertainment. I'm here for another session of looking at live retail caricature. Today we're going to be looking at the work from Martin. She's one of our great artists working at the North County Mall location in Escondido, California, and she submitted a drawing that we can with our Magnificent Seven. We can make it cuter, funnier, we can do it in a style, we can do compositions, perspective, line quality, even looking at color. Now she selected funny. So let's go ahead and take a look at her drawing. So here we have Martin's sketch from the mall location. We have two young folks. I'm going to say the boy is probably 10 to 12. The girl's probably 11 to 13, maybe about a year difference. When I look at this picture, I'm seeing some really fun things. Take a closer look. I literally love that Martin took a chance and brought in some of that anime influence that people love. Look at those eyes. Look at the whisk of the hair. Look at the sharp points on the boy's hair. These are all attributes that we can go back to looking at with anime. Let's look at the principles of animation made famous in the book The Illusion of Life by Frank Thomas and Ollie Johnson. When I look at this drawing, I'm going to consider how can I squash and stretch the face to make it just a little bit more fun. Squash and stretch. When I think of squash and stretch, I'm looking at a two-dimensional shape, but giving it volume. So if I'm going to squash a square, or I'm going to stretch a circle, I have to remember that in my representation, I'm creating a three-dimensional shape. So a square becomes a cube, or a circle is a sphere. When I squash, what I'm doing is I'm considering the weight. I want to give every one of these 2D shapes some flexibility. I want to consider speed or impact, and even is there some type of movement. So in this case, if I squash a square, it has to get flatter, which will make the shape wider. When I stretch this shape, I'm going to make it taller, which means it's going to get thin. So I can look at it like this. I'm going to squash the square, giving it weight, and that impact is going to push outwards. So by pushing down, I'm distributing that weight, and that's going to make it wider. Now, if I'm going to stretch, I'm going to pull from the top and bottom. So that's going to give that movement up and down. So I know I'm still in the realm of a three-dimensional shape, but using squash and stretch, I've played with the volume to create a new shape. As I do this, I can now take that same concept to the face. If I have a square face, or if I have a circle face, When I look at a squash of the original square, I'm making that wider. When I'm taking the original circle and I stretch it, I'm making it thinner. This will give the appearance of something tall. This might give the appearance of something flat. So I can take this squash and stretch of a two-dimensional shape and apply it to the face. Let's do that together. So if I'm imagining the drawing, I'm going to play out that squashed shape. I gave him angles. Here's the chin. Squash him pretty deep. If I squash him, that means his ears are going to be squashed out as well. So let's squash those out in this way. I'm going to take that volume of his hair because I'm squashing that down as well. I want to make sure the nose is still centered. Let's not pull too far away from that. But the hair is taking that anime influence once again. Because I squashed his face, that's going to make the eyes bounce out wider. He has this really interesting eyebrow separation. I know that's in style, so we want to address that here, but also contrast it with the other eyebrow here. Because he has a smile, I'm going to squash it out. Some hair. We're going to give him a wider neck, but not very long, to his shoulders. Now, at the same time, I'm going to go back. I'm going to play up the girl. She's going to have a very stretched out face. So we're stretching out her features. You can see I've taken her circle, made it into an oblong oval, and give her her hair. I know in the previous sketch they give a lot of volume to her hair, but because I've stretched it out to really play up the stretch on the forehead, stretch in the jaw, I'm going to give a very limited amount of hair. I do want to go ahead and give the influence of the anime with those fun swirls that we talked about. So in the same way I kept his nose center, I'm going to do the same for her. But I'm going to stretch her eyes. Because I'm stretching them, they're going to be closer together, which is going to contrast the squash on his. I want to keep with that anime influence that Martin put in. Keeping everything close. Now, Martin chose some really big lips. I'm going to disagree with that choice, and I'm going to keep her lips really thin to match that stretch. I'm going to give her the long neck, which will play off of his wider neck. Again, emphasizing the squash and the stretch. Though I didn't see it in the picture, I did see it in the sketch. She has this braid, so I'm going to stretch that braid out as well to, again, play into all of this movement that has been created with the stretch. How fun is that? Now, there's a soccer ball, so I can now understand, looking at the uniforms that they're wearing, they must be really into soccer or just coming from a game. So just to stay true to the original sketch, let's have some fun with that. And then even putting their name. And then maybe giving it some impact. Psh, and the H is way over here. That's fun. All right. So looking at this sketch, just by using that principle, squash and stretch, I'm able to have some fun play between the two faces. There's some age difference, but not a lot. But by squashing his features, stretching hers, it's a fun sketch. Let's look at the difference between the two. Here's our original sketch. Again, great anime influence. Looking at her face, looking at his face. I chose to squash. I chose to stretch. Still a different take, but maybe a little bit more fun. Just remember, squashing, things get wider. Stretching, things appear to be thinner. That's it. Squash and stretch. Thanks to Martin for letting us take a look at her artwork, her live retail caricature done at the North County Fair in Escondido. It's open Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Stop by. Hey, thank you very much for being here. I got Larry having joined us on the tech. My name's John with the Caricature Entertainment. Keep it simple, personal, and memorable. See you again soon.